Hello everyone, my name is Ginny Zhang. I'm your estate planning lawyer, and I have Katie Thompson here with me today. We handle estate planning and wealth management in all 50 states. If you have questions or you're interested in estate planning, please subscribe our channel. And Katie, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we have a special Free Legal Advice Friday video that we're putting together for everybody, and it deals with families, people that own small businesses, and real estate investors, and how to protect your assets if you're in any one of those three groups.
Great. So if you have a small family business or if you are real estate investors, this is a good video for you guys, right?
Definitely.
I want to talk about how to separate your personal assets from business assets. A lot of people doesn't know why they need to do that.
Well, and that's true. There's a kind of a common misconception that if you incorporate a business that you're safe. However, it's not sufficient for you to be able to protect those assets unless you actually separate the business assets from your actual individual assets. So for a lot of people, I know during the pandemic, they started kind of a cottage industry thing at home on Etsy or something like that. If you're not actually using bookkeeping software or anything else to separate those assets, so your business assets from your personal assets, you can be opening yourself up to the potential for liability, even though you've already incorporated.
Because we interact with a lot of international business owners, and they're coming from a different culture, right? From China, Singapore, Taiwan, or Mexico. And a lot of people think it's very complicated to incorporate a business. What they do instead is they just run their small business, they run their family business under their personal name, which is very dangerous, right? Because most importantly, because the whole reason to form an LLC is to separate the business liability from your personal liability. So if anything happened to your business or anyone sued you because malpractice, or if someone died on your business side, someone will sue you. They can go after your business, but they cannot reach your personal assets.
A lot of people will think that it's very complicated to incorporate or start an LLC. And so they don't actually do that. In the state of Texas, if you have not incorporated your business or started an LLC, you are considered what's called a sole proprietorship. And what that means is the assets of the business are identical to your personal assets. So it doesn't have to be as extreme as someone getting injured or someone dying because of your business, but even as simple as having a contractual dispute. So maybe a vendor wants you to pay an additional amount of money you didn't want to pay. What it does is it opens up your personal assets for suit and your personal liability for suit as well. And so that can be very, very nerve-wracking for anybody that owns a small business and wants to be able to protect their assets. So it's very important that you incorporate or otherwise create a legal entity.
I have a really good story. I remember one time we have a client come to our office. His family immigrated to the US from Mexico 10 years ago, and they have a family business. I think they have like a construction business or something. I don't quite remember, but they have a church and they have a quiet community in their small town. It's a happy family. They have two adorable little daughters. So the husband came to my office is because he lended his truck to his coworker, and his coworker was driving his truck and hit somebody. So it's a personal injury case. And then the person who got hit sued the driver and also sued my client. And then he came to the office, he was all worried. He said, is that going to affect my personal assets? And I'm sure this is not related to my business. I just do him a favor and let him to use my truck. And so that's when we realized that it was running his business under his own name. He does not have a form LLC. He does not have a separate business bank account. And his checkbook is under his own name and doing business as something, we call it DBA. So my advice to him is that, especially you want to avoid this type of situation, like people trying to go after your business. And then if your business is not formed correctly under the Texas law or local law, and your business assets is highly tied to your personal assets, to your family assets, it will affect your spouse and your children and all that.
And that's true. So one of the things that's the most important thing that you can do as a small business owner is to go ahead and incorporate. And one of the forms of incorporation we're going to be talking about today is an LLC. So I want to take a second to explain to you what an LLC is. It's a limited liability company. And so what that does is, in addition to that corporate veil that we just talked about, where the business is kept separate than you as an individual, there's also a limitation liability on you as the business owner as well. So the LLC is definitely kind of a golden standard in Texas if you want to limit your liability as an individual through a company that you have or a part of on a board of directors or anything like that.
But a lot of people ask how to incorporate LLC. You know, people from different culture, right? Do you need like a capital investment to start a LLC? Do you need to hire people to form an LLC? What are the requirements?
All right, so in the state of Texas, we've actually made it relatively simple for you to be able to incorporate your business or form an LLC. So typically, unlike Asian countries and some other countries, you don't have to have a significant amount of capital to be able to create an LLC. What you'll need to do is you'll need to create articles of incorporation, which actually incorporate it, and then you'll have a certificate of formation that will be filed with the state of Texas. You'll also want to file a DBA form so that you're doing business as whatever the business name that there is. And so in your articles of incorporation, you will state that you are incorporating as a limited liability corporation, and you'll set that up. You'll also put on file a registered agent with the state of Texas, with the Secretary of State. Now, if all this sounds very technical and complicated, it is something that you could do on your own, or you could hire an attorney to be able to set up those for you. And so you would be able to create your standard articles of formation, your articles of incorporation, and your standard bylaws for your business. So you can set those up, like I said, individually, or you can use an attorney. We at Springdale Law are more than happy to help you with that if that's something that you'd like.
Do you need any requirement for contribution?
So actually there's not. So in the state of Texas, you could start an LLC if you wanted to without having significant capital. So that's something that for a lot of people, they keep from incorporating or they keep from creating that LLC because they're worried that they don't make enough money, or that they don't personally have enough money, or that the process itself is going to be very costly. And that's just simply not true in the state of Texas.
So you don't need to contribute any money to your LLC. You can just start with zero, right? And then either you start making money on day one, or after 2 years, or maybe you're not making money and then you can just close the business, right? So there's no requirement of the contribution, and no requirement of employees, right? You don't need to hire anybody. You can just run within your family.
You could start with your family. So the one thing that is required when you create your articles of incorporation is you'll need to have a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. Now those can be the same person or 3 people. And there are special rules within the LLC for a closely held corporation. So a corporation that's created with only family members. And so that's actually in the Texas Business Organizations Code as well. So if you're interested in having a corporation that specifically is only your family members for a closely held family business, there is a special section of the Texas Business Organizations Code specifically applying to that. So that's something that you need to look at.
Pretty much everyone can easily form a business in the United States.
Correct. And especially in Texas specifically, it's very simple. You only have to pay a minimal amount of money to be able to file your different documentation that you need. So it would take under $1,000 for you to be able to file all the information that you need if you were doing it on your own. If you hired an attorney, you'll have to talk with the attorney to figure out what charges there would be for that.
Another question, do you need to disclose the ownership of that LLC? Like, for example, LLC incorporation is a public record. I don't want people to find out who is the owner of Springdale Law Group. Do I need to disclose that?
So when it comes to an LLC, you'll have what's called the registered agent. So if someone were unfortunately to need to sue you, the person that they would reach out to is that registered agent. Now, you can have a registered agent that is you as an individual, or you can have another individual who is not you as the owner that stands in as the registered agent. There are also corporations that are more than happy to take your money, and they will stand in as your registered agent as well. So when you do that, actually what people will see is they'll see the corporation name and they'll see that registered agent for the corporation. So you don't have to actually disclose that you're the individual that owns the company. So for instance, in Jeannie's case, if Jeannie for whatever reason didn't want people to know that she was the owner of Springdale Law Group, which is a group that is a business, she could use a registered agent corporation. And so what they would see was that the registered agent was a corporation such as Registered Agents Limited. And so that's what people would see when they looked up the company, is they would only see that registered agent. So otherwise they wouldn't see that Jeannie Zhang is the person that owns Springdale.
Yeah, I think that's another protection that you can use, right? I don't want people to know I'm the owner, and I can use a separate company to be the registered agent. For example, I'm living in Texas, but I incorporated my law firm in Delaware. And then by Delaware law, you need a local person to help you receive the mail. So you can have a registered agent in Delaware to do all that for you. Like pretty much have like a business presence and receiving all the mails. On the form, when you incorporate a business, there's members, and then those members could be owners, or it could be a third person. It could be someone that I really trust, or it could be one of my employees. And then those people's name can be like disclosed on the form. The actual owner doesn't need to be on the form actually, right?
Yes, that's correct. So specifically in the state of Texas, when you're dealing with formation, so Jeannie brought up a really good point here. So let's say that you live in Texas and you want to have a company that's in Texas. You could choose to incorporate your company in a different state and do business in Texas. And so one of the things worth checking out is to see what the different business organizations codes are like in the 50 states, so that you can choose a state to incorporate in that's more favorable to you. So if you were to have a legal problem, you could have your choice of law in the state that you're actually incorporated. So that's something that can be very helpful to you as an individual when you're trying to set up a business. So again, it's something to review, something you might want to talk to an attorney about as far as which state you might want to incorporate in, and then you could do business in whichever state that you choose.
And which type of LLC is good for your purpose.
Correct. So each one of the 50 states are going to have different, typically all of them have like the LLC format, but there may be subversions of LLCs that could be more favorable to you depending on which state you incorporate in.
So it's absolutely true to form an LLC to run your small business in order to separate the business liability from your personal assets, and also to have a little bit privacy. So you don't want to everybody know that how much assets do you own, right?
Correct. And one of the things I want to talk about for a second is what assets are actually protected. So in the state of Texas, if you fail to create an LLC or you fail to create any incorporation for your business.
This is under the situation that they don't incorporate LLC?
Correct. So if you fail to create an LLC or any form of business, there are two categories of assets that there could be. First are protected assets, and second are your unprotected assets. So if you have personal liability, the only assets that the state of Texas will protect for you are your primary homestead. So if you own more than one home, only the home that you actually have as your primary residence and that you actually live in.
This is a special law in Texas. Only Texas has the homestead law.
Correct. So in the state of Texas, we have what's called a homestead exemption. So it will exempt for you your primary residence being the house that you actually live in. If you have more than one home, so let's say you had a lake house and a vacation home, it would only cover the house that you primarily live in. So you have your house, one vehicle, 12 head of cattle, because we're in the state of Texas. Several guns will also be protected, again, because we're in the state of Texas. Also, the tools of your trade. So let's say you're an electrician, the tools specifically of your trade, as well as your Social Security income or veterans benefits, if you have any. Household items of your family up to $60,000. So if you have anything in your home, furniture, technology, anything like that, it's worth more than $60,000, that would not be protected and could be taken in the case of a judgment. Also, retirement accounts are also protected in 401ks. So anything that's not those items that you own. So let's say you own a boat, let's say you own 2 cars, let's say you own more than one home, let's say you own 50 head of cattle, then those things would be something that could be attached if there was a judgment. So the court could rule that you needed to sell those items and be able to turn them into money to be able to use to satisfy a judgment. So that's
go after that, but they can't go after my primary house, my vehicle, 401k, all that.
Let's talk for a second about if you own a business in the state of Texas, but you're running it as a sole proprietorship, and why that might be a bad idea. Now, the state of Texas has additional protections that are not actually something that's available in all 50 states. The state of Texas has what's called the homestead exemption. So at as it sounds, like it gives an exemption for particularly your homestead. Now here, that means your primary residence. So if you have 3 or 4 homes, let's say you have a lake house, a vacation home, and a beach house, it would protect only your primary residence, the place where you live the majority of the year. So if you had the situation that I just lined out, the lake house, the beach house, and that vacation home would all be something that a creditor could attach if there were a judgment against you. In addition to the physical primary residence, like we just spoke about, you also get 1 vehicle per person that's an occupant in the home. So if you and your wife both have 1 vehicle and live in the home, or you and your spouse, I should say, both have 1 vehicle and live in the home, then you would get 2 vehicles. If you have an additional vehicle, so let's say you have a truck that you use on occasion, that would be something that could be attached and used to liquidate in order to, the creditor could get it in order to substantiate a judgment. Now, your Social Security benefits or veterans benefits, if you're eligible for veterans benefits, are also exempt from that, as are your 401k or retirement accounts in the state of Texas. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that since we're in the state of Texas, you get 2 guns. Again, it's the state of Texas, so if you own more than 2 guns, any additional guns could be liquidated. You also get 2 horses and 12 head of cattle. Now, if you don't own any cattle and you don't own any horses, obviously none of those would be protected. But anything that you have above and beyond everything that I've just mentioned, or $60,000 worth of items within the home themselves, those are all protected. So a lot of people have more than $60,000 worth of items in the home, because you include in that your furniture, electronics, anything that jewelry, anything that you have in the home. Anything that you have over $60,000 can be attached and could be liquidated in order to pay out the judgment if there was a judgment against you. So nowadays, a lot of people, even a normal family that considers themselves of moderate means, will have some items that would be able to be attached. So it is in your best interest to go ahead and incorporate or make a limited liability company like we talked about to protect all those assets that you have that wouldn't be protected by the homestead law in Texas. And again, as I just said, that homestead exemption is something that's unique to the state of Texas. So if you incorporate in other states, or if you live in a state that's not Texas, you need to check your local laws to see if you have anything that actually is protected, because in some states you don't have anything that's protected.
How about cash in the house or gold in the house?
So if you were to have cash or gold, that does count towards that $60,000. So if you were to have bars of gold in your house, you would hit that $60,000 limit very quickly. I don't know how many of our potential clients would have bars of gold in their home, but if you did, if you had bars of gold or even bars of silver or other precious metals in your home, you'd hit that $60,000 very quickly.